Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. This Major League Baseball episode covers every game scheduled to be played on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. In case you're new here, I've built a mathematical model for win probability using hitter and pitcher projections I've created. Note that total projections based on the morning weather data will be added to the sheet in the later portion of the morning. I'll make one money line or run line pick on every game that's played 7 days a week, though there are no Sunday shows. That doesn't mean that I recommend you do the same, as my goal in this episode is to share key information about today's games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why certain plays are being recommended in order for you to come up with picks that you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly or tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with me or against me before investing your hard-earned money. And as I go through my plays, remember that there are no locks in gambling, so what I'll give you are loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. And as always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur, so as much as I'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Our Tuesday shaping up to be pretty solid so far. Obviously, by the time you hear this, you'll know a little bit more. But for the most part, as most of the games are winding down, it's looking like a pretty solid day here. We're up in the Marlins jersey here as we got us the play of the day winner in that under, and got the Marlins on the run line. And like I told you, I think there was an edge on the Phillies money line as well. So a lot of different ways that this game profited us in that one. But again, a pretty good Tuesday. And as I mentioned on Tuesday's show, for the most part, when we've had bad days, maybe not in the next day, but we bounced back pretty well and bounced back pretty good here today. So exciting things and more to come here for this Wednesday with a lot of games. But before we get to those, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you are yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And the only way, assuming you turn notifications on, to ensure you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with the few others in the game. Hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment on YouTube. I love those and try to respond to as many as I can. I've also partnered with Horse Racing Today. For those of you who like to play the ponies, you can find their stuff at horseracingtoday.net. Get a team of 5 with over 125 years of combined experience in handicapping horse races. There isn't an angle they don't know or bias they can't identify. Check out their YouTube shows. With the website, the links are in the description. And also as a reminder, we've started up that Patreon page for those of you looking to support the show. Membership starts at just $3 per month. Benefits include things such as exclusive access to our Discord, where me and my co-hosts talk about a lot of plays and line movements, things we're interested in, and just have some good, fun sports talk. We've also got ad-free and early access to shows. Not they're being recorded at night. You can get those if you're a night owl, especially if you're out on the West Coast, rather than waiting until the morning. And, of course, we've also added the ability to see lines earlier. I'll still come out with lines like normal, but again, an added benefit if you want to support us financially. I'll get those lines to you before openers come out. Today, there were already 2 that if you notice, I gave everyone kind of free access to that today. Already 2 lines that looked pretty good that you've already seen, hopefully, and already grabbed. The Rockies were in the mid plus 120s, and the Orioles were in the mid plus 130s. Both of those, the model said, would be solid opportunities when the openers came out. Both those numbers have already dropped. The numbers that we locked in here tonight for our official plays are actually worse than that. So that's just a little tidbit of what you can get with those early lines. Again, if you're wanting that level of support there, you can if you're willing to give that level of support, we can provide that for you. Get those openers again before the numbers move. So hopefully that is of value to you. Otherwise, we'll get right to the games here. We do have a noon start time, 12:35 Eastern. First pitch, Mets, the Pirates. Not confirmed, but it sounds like here it'll be Chris Bassett versus Bryce Wilson in the first game. There's no line on it as of yet. Model says this should be Mets minus 264. Obviously, they should be hefty favorites over the Pirates. Pirates winning here on Tuesday, and we had the Pirates as an A-grade play on the run line, just ensuring in case they lost by 1, didn't need it, as plus odds on the money line would have been profitable for you there. Bryce Wilson, though, not the pitcher that Mitch Keller is. Sunday, we took the Pirates on the run line, and that worked as well. Bryce Wilson, not the pitcher that JT Brubaker is. So, I mean, a little bit of a different story in this one. Chris Bassett, a full standard deviation better than league average. Bryce Wilson, a full standard deviation worse than league average. Wilson's not as bad as that 6.12 ERA. Underlying metrics have him in the upper fours. But Chris Bassett is maybe not quite as good at 3.32 ERA, but not far from it. Obviously, the Mets have better offense, despite what you saw here. The Mets struggling as of late. Obviously, that's not something that should go completely unnoticed, losing a couple to the Nats there. And, of course, the Cardinals lost that first game to the Nats, but then bounced back with a strong run line winner here on Tuesday for us. The Mets kind of struggle a little bit, but, I mean, every team goes through these spurts. I've talked about it extensively on yesterday's show. We can't overreact to a few games. Just like if we overreacted to the Nats few games, we'd be back on them again last night on this Tuesday here, and that wouldn't have been profitable. So Mets struggling, but I don't think there's anything to be made of it here necessarily long term. I think they're going to be just fine. They should be hefty favorites. It's all going to be about the price on this one, just like it always is. Again, model says minus 264 for the Mets. Anything in the minus 270s, maybe even minus 275 or better, I'd be taking the Mets on this one. Probably as the road team, probably on the run line rather than the money line. I'm really looking to get closer to plus 300 before I'm excited about the Pirates being able to pull the upset. And obviously they can. Anything can happen in baseball, as we see on a nightly basis. But my buy point of the Pirates is probably closer to plus 300 on that money line. Whereas on the Mets, like I said, I'm hoping to get maybe minus 250. Probably would play them on the run line, being the road team, a higher probability of covering that. And just a decent chance at some point when they break out and let loose their frustrations that they run away with one. So Mets should be big favorites in that one. Just all about the price, depending on what the play will be there later on. 3:05 Eastern first pitch, first game of a doubleheader in New York. Twins at the Yankees. Louis Varland versus Domingo Germán. Varland pulls in not as a starter. It's pulling up as a bullpen game. This is an interesting one where I'm not 100% trusting the model on this one, simply because I think it's going to be worse than a standard bullpen game with Varland. I don't really like what I see from him with his minor league numbers. He's only made a few AAA starts, and the AA starts he's made this year haven't been exactly promising. If I treat this as a bullpen game, the model says Yankees minus 136. The model just thinks Germán is average, and the Twins' bullpen is really good, which means they should be able to thrive in a bullpen game, at least better than some teams like the Giants, giving up a ton of runs here to the Dodgers on Tuesday night. Twins offense rates as good as the Yankees offense, righty versus righty, and you expect more righties coming out of the Twins bullpen than lefties. Varland, of course, a righty to start off with. The Twins relievers are better. So, I mean, the model is thinking about this as a bullpen game, like, hey, it won't be that bad. But, I mean, I'm just really nervous for how Varland starts off this game. I don't think it's going to go well. The fact that they're calling him up to start this game tells me they want him to go 4 or 5 innings, and I just don't see that ending well. So no line out on this one yet. It'll be interesting to see what it comes out as, because the model says 136, minus 136 for the Yankees. But again, that's just a lot. It just depends on how deep Varland goes. If they're or if they don't pitch him, because this line isn't confirmed. It's just what we're seeing from a lot of different websites. But if it's someone else, and it's a bullpen game, it just really depends. Again, if it's more of a bullpen game, I think the Twins got a shot in this one, because I'm not a huge Domingo Germán fan. Again, model just think he's pretty average. He does have a 3.12 ERA on the season, but the underlying metrics say he's actually performed more in the 4.5 level. Not a great starting pitcher here for the Yankees. It's just how deep do they try to let Varland go? If it's mostly relievers for the Twins, most of their major league caliber relievers, I think they got a shot. Otherwise, it's tough to say. So the Yankees should be favored. The question is just by how much. This will be an interesting one where I may not just blindly trust the model, depending on what exactly we think the plan is for Varland and how the game's priced. My hunch is, if it's a doubleheader, they are going to try to get as many as possible out of them. And like I said, I'm nervous about that if I'm a Twins fan. 3:10 Eastern first pitch, Brewers at the Rockies. Rockies winning a wild one here on a Tuesday night. Again, the Brewers had well in hand as a run line winner and then just blew up, including giving up a walk-off home run so that the Rockies won by 3. A wild game in Coors. Well, we're always talking about, you're always looking for the best odds at Coors, whether it's run line or money line. Take whatever the better odds gives you, because you just never really know what's going to happen in that ballpark. And this one, it'll be a pair of lefties. Eric Lauer versus Kyle Freeland. Both these guys fairly average. I don't think there's really much difference between them. Lauer has a better ERA, but it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. The underlying metrics say it should be in the mid-4s. Same with Freeland. Underlying metrics say mid-4s. His ERA may be a little bit inflated because of pitching half his games in Coors Field. Neither one of these guys is great. They're both just very run-of-the-mill average pitchers in my mind. Obviously, the Brewers relievers are better, but they sure didn't look at Tuesday night. You never really know how altitude's going to affect the pitcher. Maybe that second night that they're pitching goes a little better for them. You just have to be a little bit nervous here. Rockies just a much better home team, and you have the lefty factor. The Rockies much better offense against a lefty. Brewers offense a little bit worse against the lefty. This is what I talked about earlier on. If you saw the number on this one, it's Brewers minus 121 is what the model. It should be Brewers minus 116 is what the model says. So 1 plus 116 is still a B grade pick for me on the Rockies. The issue is, of course, earlier on in the day, it was in the mid 120s. That was a much more solid pick. Probably at that point, more of a B grade play just because of the fact that, again, you never really know what you're going to get in Coors Field. And because of that, it makes it a little bit tougher. It makes it a little bit tougher just to be overly confident. But it was at least good odds there for you if you got it earlier. If you got it now, of course, plus 116. I still think it's worth a play. It's more of the B minus pick. It's just hanging on to that B as opposed to a more comfortable B play that's higher up. So a play that I still like here, getting plus odds on the Rockies, a team that plays much better at home against a lefty, but not one that I'm as excited about. Braves at the A's, 3:35 Eastern start time. Of course, that'll be a 12:35 local first pitch time. Their early start there in Oakland. A total of 7 in this one, so we're expecting not a lot of runs. Don't tell that to the pitchers pitching in Tuesday night's game, though, as that game got out of hand quite crazily. Spencer Strider versus Ken Waldichuk. I don't expect a lot of runs to be scored in this one, but I didn't expect a lot in Tuesday either, and you never really know how baseball's going to play out for you. Strider, of course, is fantastic and had a great start last time out. He's a guy that is now potentially reaching the threshold of being second, third best pitcher in all of baseball, according to the model. Guy I've been on all season. I talked about him. Even as he was long reliever, the guy was electric. Just everything the Braves could ask for and more. Again, as long as he continues to improve on his command, keep that pitch count up, his stuff is so dang good. The Braves just found themselves an amazing pitcher here. Waldichuk, not terrible. Model says he's average. He's only thrown the one time here in the big leagues. Went pretty well for him in his 4 2/3 innings, 193 ERA. Underlying metrics say, mid threes. Obviously didn't predict to be quite that good going forward, but a solid pitcher here. Obviously the Braves should be big favorites. The question is by how much and in that pitcher's ballpark. I'm on the run line here with the A's, just like I was in the first game of this series. Plus 135 offers a lot of value. As good as Spencer Strider is, the Braves can win this game 1-0. I just love the plus 135. It's tremendous value here. In a game that scoring, I know it's hard to get that taste out of our mouths of the crazy game here on Tuesday night. But we don't expect a lot of runs in this ballpark. With a decent pitcher for the A's and with Spencer Strider going runs at a premium, again, Braves winning like 1-0 or 2-1 is not out of the question. So plus odds just offers a lot of value. And baseball is weird. You never know exactly what's going to happen. So I just think there's a lot of value here on the A's at these big plus odds. Model says Braves minus 235 is the price. So plus 237 is the money line price I'm seeing right now on the A's. Maybe worth a flyer. Hard to really fade Spencer Strider, though. But, if you're talking a quarter unit, half unit, something really small like that, maybe not a bad idea to take a shot on the A's. I think the Braves are a little bit overpriced. But like I said, I think the plus odds on the run line are good enough. And what should be a low-scoring, tight contest, I think there's just a lot of value at plus 135. So it's a big great pick for me on the A's run line there in Oakland. 4:05 Eastern, first pitch, Tigers at the Angels. Angels should be big favorites in this one, throwing a pretty solid pitcher in Patrick Sandoval against not a solid pitcher in Drew Hutchison. Another situation here where one team starting pitcher is a full standard deviation better than average. Another one is a full standard deviation worse than league average. Sandoval is a 3.02 ERA. Underlying metrics say maybe about a quarter of a run higher than that. Still fantastic season for him and a promising pitcher for sure. Hutchinson 4.06 ERA, and the underlying metrics say it should be about a half run higher. So, I mean, not a good pitcher for the Tigers. Their relievers are, of course, better, but they're going to have to rely heavily on them because I don't see Hutchinson going a lot of innings in this game. Angels offense not anything great, but still better than the Tigers offense. It's a very different story than on Tuesday night facing Eduardo Rodriguez, who was a pitcher with a pulse. I think the Angels can get to Hutchinson, and I think Sandoval shuts the Tigers down. So I'm all over the Angels here at minus 195. It's a B grade pick. Model says it should be Angels minus 206. Game has a total of 8.5, so expecting a few runs. You could look run line. I'm just a little bit, I know the odds are big, but it's just a situation where, again, I really like the run line when I think it might run away and get ugly. Part of the way that the Angels can win this game is on the strength of Sandoval, and the Angels offense sometimes disappears. So it's not a situation like the Cardinals say against the Nats here both on Tuesday and Wednesday where I'm saying, I think it's going to get ugly. Let's take the run line and save ourselves the odds because the money line price is really high. So money line price, the one that starts with a 1, I still think is worth the investment. And I think it's a better play than the run line because, like I said, the Angels should score off of Hutchinson, but even if they don't, the Angels could win this game like 1-0 or 2-1, and that's not what we expect, obviously. But part of the way this game goes well for the Angels is on the strength of Sandoval. And if it is a lower scoring game, I don't want to have to be chasing that 1.5 runs with the home team as much as I would with the road team. So I'm just going to stick to the money line here. As long as the number starts with a 1, it's a B grade play for me on the Angels. 4:10 Eastern first pitch. You get a 1:10 local start time out on the West Coast. Giants at the Dodgers. Alex Cobb versus Clayton Kershaw. Cobb is a pitcher I've talked about all season. I really like him. I think he's undervalued. 3.58 ERA in the season, but underlying metrics say it should actually be in the upper 2s. I think he's pretty solid, and he rates right behind Clayton Kershaw, who also really good. 2.59 ERA in the season, and underlying metrics have him in the upper 2s. I mean, the advanced metrics for both these pitchers are superb. The model likes both of these guys. I'm not sure what the weather will look like tomorrow in LA, but just based off the pitchers, the model would think under. Of course, your scary thought with Cobb is he's a guy who sometimes doesn't give you a lot of length, and that's bad news given the Giants' bullpen and how weak they are. Obviously, both offenses are solid, but we have to remember the Giants' offense not as good against lefties, and that's what they have against Kershaw. So that's kind of the downside there. The issue with this one, and I took the Dodgers here on Tuesday night, and that's looking good so far. But as with most games, the Dodgers the prices are just too high. And I think it's the same story here for the day game on Wednesday. Model says it should be Dodgers minus 212. So Dodgers minus 245. I know Kershaw's really good, but Cobb is really good too. This reminds me more of Monday's game than Tuesday's game because Cobb can absolutely keep the Giants in this game just like Logan Webb did. So I'm on the Giants here. It's not a play that I really love. Monday night, we had the benefit of the Dodgers having played on Sunday night and whatever weird Sunday night baseball curse, was happening where these Sunday night teams play in bigger games and the night before and just don't play well. Happening, we had that benefit on Monday. Don't have that benefit here. Webb can give you more length, and he didn't really only give you 6 innings on Monday, but still the Dodgers make pitchers work and get out early. And for Cobb, that could be 5 innings. I'm going to get an extra inning out of that Giants bullpen. It's just not what I'm that confident in. You can take a shot on the money line like I did Monday with the Giants. I don't think that's crazy. Again, model says 212, so I'm seeing Giants plus 219. Might be worth a flyer, a small play. But it's just not one that I love a lot. I'll take the Giants on the run line. Like I said, I think both these pitchers can keep it lower scoring, weather aside. And obviously the Dodgers offense really good. But I mean, if Cobb shuts them down, it's a low scoring game. I think the Giants can hang in there. So I'll take them plus 1.5 here at even money with a C grade pick. The other thing is, if we do see some more runs because it's warmer weather, then that means the ball's flying. And ball does tend to fly there a little bit more in the daytime. And if that's the type of thing, then, maybe it's a 1-run game and the Giants lose, 5-4. So, I mean, a lot of ways the Giants hang in there. Obviously, they can get destroyed. But I just see it being similar to Monday's game where Alex Cobb and Logan Webb are both pretty good pitchers and both can keep the Giants in the game. So it's just the Dodgers are over. It's Giants are pass. If you want to pass, not a crazy idea whatsoever. But the Dodgers, I'm trying to back the Dodgers as much as possible. And when I do, it tends to work really well. It's just this one's just too high to be a smart investment, in my opinion. 4:10 Eastern first pitch. Mariners hosting the White Sox to close out that series. It'll be Michael Kopech versus Luis Castillo. Kopech coming back from injury. 3.58 ERA in the season, but the underlying metrics say it should be in the mid-4s, a full run higher. So a guy that I'm looking to fade, I just think it's smoke and mirrors. I think the Seattle offense is good enough to take advantage of that. And I think this might be part of where it comes crashing down for him. I like the Mariners to put up some runs. Castillo, obviously a fantastic pitcher. Again, the guy I talked about shouldn't be priced like he's, in the Max Scherzer category. I think he's one rung behind that, but I think he's still very good. He's in that Logan Webb, grouping that we talked about. That's just, right behind the Shane Bieber, right? The Garrett Cole, they're right behind those guys. Really good pitcher. 2.71 ERA in the season for Castillo. Underlying metrics say just a tad higher than that in the low 3s for him is where it should be. So, a great pitcher for the Mariners, great bullpen for the Mariners. I will probably be on the Mariners. The question is just what price we're going to be offered. But the model says it should be Mariners minus 214. The total and the weather is going to affect on this one, whether I like run line or money line more. If it's a lower scoring game, I probably just would lay the money line with the Mariners on this one. I'm assuming we're going to be in the Mariners. We tend to be, and it's tended to work out really well for us. The bottom line on this one is I'm hoping for a number that starts with a 1. I'm getting excited if it's in the 170s, 180s. To me, it's all Mariners, but we'll see. But again, if it depends on the weather and the total. If it's a hot day, and we're looking at a total 8, maybe run line makes sense depending on the odds of that. But probably just thinking money line because again, that's a pretty pitcher friendly ballpark. And in the event it's a low scoring game, I just, again, don't love run lines for the home team unless I think it's going to get extremely ugly. And it could. Again, it just all depends on the price on this one. So again, I'm hoping for a number that starts with a 1 on the Mariners. Model says 214. My buy price on the White Sox going against Castillo would have to be pretty high because I'm not a big Michael Kopech fan. The White Sox offense against the righty, again, not one I really have a lot of faith in. So my buy price on the White Sox probably more like in the plus 230s before I'm really considering a play on them. Game 2 of the doubleheader there, Mets at Pirates. We're expecting this to be Jacob deGrom versus Johan Oviedo. It's looking at a bullpen game for Oviedo. He did make a start his last time out, but other than that, it was all relief appearances. The last several days have been relief appearances. Maybe it turns out that he goes a little bit deeper, but at this point, I think treating it like a bullpen game kind of makes sense. Somewhere between a bullpen game and a starter, but I don't think he's going to give you a whole lot to be excited about. Obviously, Jacob deGrom should. I don't really have to say anything about him. Again, clear by far and away the best pitcher in baseball. Model says Mets minus 362. This number should be crazy high. Who knows what side it'll be on? I really have no idea what this number is going to be. We've seen sometimes the models throwing out these giant numbers, and we've been on the favorites. And we've seen sometimes the model throws out giant numbers, and we're still in the underdog because the actual price is way too high. This price feels like it has to be super high. The only thing that the Pirates have going for them is the games in Pittsburgh, but otherwise, it should be all Mets in this one. There's really not much else to say about that one. 6:40 Eastern, first pitch, Red Sox at the Rays. Yet another game with no line as of yet. Model for this one says Rays minus 121. So I'm back in the Rays here. Really probably minus 125 or better. I think it's worth a look at the Rays, but I'm not really getting excited until it's minus 1 teens. If it's minus 1 something, that's a situation where you'd be talking about an A-grade play on the Rays. Based off the numbers I'm seeing, I don't think that's the case. I think we'll be on the Red Sox again. Not that the Rays aren't good. I just think they're a little bit overpriced. They've been playing really well lately, but just like with the Yankees are playing really well lately, and that just fell apart, right? So it's like you never know when this is going to stop and start. Based off the numbers I'm seeing around, we'll probably be on the Red Sox, plus 130 probably makes some sense. If you're in the plus 140s, it's a play you got to get excited about. Total eyeing around 7 in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Obviously, there were a lot of runs here on Tuesday night, but in general, we don't expect that sort of game at the Trop. Probably looking Red Sox run line like was the intended play before Rasmussen was scratched. But I think we're probably going to be eyeing Red Sox run line in this game. And depending on what the odds are, obviously determines the grade. Nick Pivetta versus Jeffrey Springs. Pivetta's been fairly solid, but Springs has been a better pitcher. Really not much else to say about that. Pivetta's ERA is pretty accurate. Springs, I don't think he's quite as good at 2.62 ERA, but again, a better pitcher than Pivetta. Red Sox relievers pretty average, but the Rays relievers are grading out now as above average. And the Red Sox just have a slight edge on offense. So, I mean, the Rays should be favored in this game at home. It's just based on the price I'm seeing, it's probably by too much. Again, model says Rays minus 121. So, again, if we're seeing the plus 140 type play situation on the Red Sox, that's probably the way you have to look. 6:45 Eastern, first pitch, Marlins at the Phillies. Trevor Rogers versus Bailey Falter, a pair of lefties in this one. Neither one are great. Rogers is barely below average. Falter's decently below average. This was a game, obviously, the Phillies were hoping that they could welcome Zach Wheeler back, and that's not the case. He'll miss at least one more start. Falter's a 4.8 ERA. Underlying metrics say about a 4-run higher. Rogers at 5.57 ERA. Underlying metrics say it should be a 4-run lower. So Rogers, I think, is a better pitcher here. The issue is the Marlins still can't score runs. That was part of the impetus for the underplay on them with two good pitchers on Tuesday night's game. And part of the reason why I said if I was playing, I'll play them on the run line because I think it's likely that they lose a one-run game. They tend to do that a lot. I think it's the same setup for tonight. It's really not drastically different. The only thing is that the number's better on the Phillies tonight, whereas last night's number, the Phillies still won the game, but that money line price was just really high, and I said I just couldn't go with the run line. That's why I went Marlins run line. Thought there was some value in a low-scoring, close game. I think it's a similar setup here, except the pitchers are a little bit worse. And so I think run line's a little bit less enticing. Not a lot of value on the Phillies money line here, but you can't trust the Marlins to win a game, and they're more likely to lose by one, or if there's a few more runs because it's worse pitchers, probably lose by two. I mean, that's just kind of been the way the Marlins have gone as of late. They just keep getting out of their way offensively. I still trust the Phillies offense more. I still trust the relievers more. Model says minus 161, so minus 167 on the Phillies. Worth a lean for me, but not much more than that. Obviously, if the price gets better, I'm more excited about it. But unless you get down to the 150s, I'll be on the Phillies, but it's not a play that I really love. It's hard to back the Marlins these days. Like I said, if I was doing it, I'd be on the run line like it was here on Tuesday. But with better pitchers, the probability that we see a tight one-run game is a little bit less. So the run line just is a little bit less enticing. So I'll flip to this one on Phillies money line and hope that we see another similar game like we saw on Tuesday where the Phillies can eke one out. 7:05 Eastern, first pitch, Twins at the Yankees, game 2 of that doubleheader. Joe Ryan versus Garrett Cole. This is the game we had talked about. For Tuesday's slate, model still says Yankees minus 143 if we're seeing similar prices, and we do see this matchup again. It hasn't been confirmed. We may crisscross pitchers. That's the problem with doubleheaders is you just never know, and sometimes they do it, much closer to first pitch on. We don't really know which guy's going to go which game. So if that flips around, things change. Check Twitter, check the sheet for any of those updates. But otherwise, there's really not much I can do because we don't necessarily know exactly what they're going to do. If it's the same matchup, we already heard about it. It'll be probably a pretty similar price. And I think Twins run line still makes a lot of sense. Yankees should be favored. But I think that, again, this Twins offense is decent enough to keep, and the relievers are better. They can keep them in the game. In what should be a lower scoring contest based off of such good pitching and, again, good relievers. Model still, again, Yankees minus 143. So if we're seeing similar prices, it's Twins or pass. Really in both games, my fear, it'll be Twins or pass in the first game. But like I said, I am concerned about that one. At least this one, we have Joe Ryan to back us up. The issue is you're going up against Garrett Cole versus the first game you actually the pitch you can beat. So maybe they crisscross that. Maybe the Twins decide to throw Joe Ryan against Domingo Germán where they feel like they got a really good chance to win and kind of throw the other game. You never really know how it's going to play out. So again, check the tweet, the Twitter and the sheet for all those updates. Once we know more, we'll be able to attack that. 7:05 Eastern, first pitch, Blue Jays at the Orioles. Alek Manoah versus Dean Kremer in this one. Again, with a total of 7.5, so expecting not a lot of runs. I think that favors the Orioles, a tight, low-scoring game with the way their bullpen pitches. Plus 130, again, great value. I tweeted this out with the early look at the lines. Model says Blue Jays minus 109, so the Blue Jays should be barely slight favorites. So again, if you could have got better odds in this earlier on the day based off that early sneak peek of those lines. Plus 130, still an A-grade play. I'm still on the Orioles at home. Dean Kremer, 3.22 ERA. Underlying metrics say a little bit worse than that. He's not that far behind Alek Manoah. I mean, Manoah's had a great season with that 2.48 ERA, and he's a fun guy to root for. But the underlying metrics have Manoah a tenth of a run better than Dean Kremer. So, I mean, it's not like there's a huge edge here for the Blue Jays with regards to starting pitching. The Orioles have an advantage on the bullpen, and the Jays' offensive advantage, again, is minimized being a right-handed pitcher. Still a better offense than the Orioles for sure, and that's why they should be road favorites. Make sure we get that clear, right? The Blue Jays should be road favorites. Being road favorites is not necessarily easy in baseball, but their offense is good enough to overcome the weakness that they have at reliever. And Manoah, again, a slightly better pitcher than Dean Kremer, but they should be small road favorites, not priced out at minus 140. So plus 130 again for the Orioles. A grade play for me. Blue Jays, like usual, just overpriced. 7:40 Eastern, first pitch, Reds at the Cubs. Mike Minor versus Javier Assad. Projected on this one, no line out yet. That produces a money line projection of Cubs minus 146. Neither one of these pitchers are much to write home about. Assad in his 10 innings has looked really good, but the underlying metrics say don't get too excited about his sub-1 ERA. Projects to be a below-average pitcher. Minor's showing signs of life lately, but the underlying metrics for the season still aren't great for him. So I'm not convinced that he's found anything magical. I think he's just the truth is somewhere in between. He's maybe not quite as good as some of those better starts against weaker pitching or weaker hitter. I mean, I don't think he's maybe as bad as he looked early, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. Not very good baseball here. Both teams' relievers and offenses are subpar. The Cubs relievers are worse, but the Reds bats are worse. Model says should be Cubs minus 146. We'll see what the number is, but again, tough to watch that series. Just not a lot of good baseball in it. Buy prices on this one, minus 150 or better. I'm on the Cubs. This one's pretty straightforward. If it's in the minus 140s, it's a C grade. If it's in the minus 130s, it's a B grade. If it touches into the minus 120s, it's an A grade. On the Reds, I would need plus one into the plus 150s before I felt like I could back the Reds. Plus 160s be a B grade, plus 170s be an A grade. Probably would look the Reds on the run line though, and back the Cubs on the money line on this one. 7:45 Eastern, first pitch, Nats at the Cardinals. Note on this one, the projected number that I put out earlier today was a little bit off on this one. I had a typo in Corey Abbott's name, so it pulled up as a bullpen game. Plugging him in, it gets worse. But I do want to point out something, and this is something that I've talked about before because Jared's talked about it on the show a little bit. The difference in the money lines and the probability translation is wildly different towards even money versus the extremes. The number that was posted earlier in the day was in the mid minus 200s, but it was only a 5% difference. It's crazy to think, but 5% difference out at these numbers actually changes you a full 100 points on the money line. And again, it's just like we talked about, like it's the exact opposite close to even money. Close to even money, 1 percentage point is like, 5 cents, but out towards the tails, 1 percentage point is, 20, 25 cents, depending on how far out you go. Right. So it's just kind of a weird quirk with probability and how that translates. So it dropped. Plugging Corey Abbott in as opposed to a bull game dropped the Nats win probability 5%, but that 5% made a massive change in terms of what the projected money line would be. Now with him in there, it has Cardinals minus 345. So Cardinals minus 290 is a great investment. I'm going to play it on the run line though, just like yesterday. Just saving the odds. If it's going to go bad, it's going to go bad, and the Cardinals should win by more than one. If it's tight, I don't want any part of it. So it's still minus 140, but I think it's still an A grade. Jordan Montgomery, a good pitcher. Corey Abbott, not. Nats relievers below average. Cardinals relievers above average. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The Cards should run away with this, and I think the price isn't high enough. Again, I like to mix my portfolio with a lot of favorites and a lot of underdogs. I think any good model would tell you that. This is a case where we're on the favorite. Not always in the favorite. Not always in the dog. In this case, I think the favorite's underpriced. So I'm on the Cardinals here. On the run line at minus 140, it's an A grade play. Like I said, I like Montgomery. I think his ERA is fairly realistic at 3.15, and the model does not like Corey Abbott. Thinks that his ERA is actually a run and a half lower than it should be, and his ERA is already in the mid fours. So just massive edges across the board for the Cardinals, and that's why I'm playing them on the run line. 8:10 Eastern, first pitch, Rangers at the Astros. Cole Ragans versus Christian Javier. This is all Astros, in my opinion. No line out as of yet. I'm not sure which pitcher we haven't confirmed, but neither one of these guys has, Javier's been jerked around from the rotation, the bullpen all season, all career for him. Ragans has been up and down for the Rangers. So just waiting on final confirmation here before we get an official number. But this should be all Astros. Model says minus 253. Ragans is a lefty. Again, we talked about the Astros hit lefties better. Project better against lefties. Again, a very right-handed heavy team, especially now without Brantley for the season. Basically replaced Brantley with Mancini, who Mancini's not as good of a hitter, but against lefties he's a better hitter. 4.42 ERA this season for Ragans, but underlying metrics they should be 2 full runs higher. So a pitcher who I don't think is very good. Model doesn't like him at all. Says he's more than a standard deviation below average. Javier's, again, a pitcher who should have already stayed in the Astros rotation. It's weird that they took him out in the first place, but it is what it is. They're not paying me to make those decisions. 3.07 ERA on the season, and underlying metrics say maybe half a run higher, but still an above average good pitcher. Should be all Astros. They didn't get the job done Tuesday. But that's why we took him on the run line to save ourselves some odds in case it was a close game. Probably be looking run line again for him on this one. It's like we talked about with the Cardinals. If it's going to go well for us, it's going to go well. And that's the thing is this projects to be a game where the Astros score a ton of runs off a lefty and Cole Ragans. Projected to score a ton of runs against Otto, and it didn't. But that's the thing is if that doesn't happen, then I want the better odds, and that's why we like the run line situation here. Same thing if it doesn't go well, if they don't score a bunch of runs off Ragans, it's going to be a tight game. At least we've got better odds to protect ourselves against, right? But I mean, they should score a lot of runs off Ragans. Javier should pitch well. So I mean, Astros probably decide to be on. Again, model says minus 253. I'd probably play run line, but always depends on the price, determining how confident we are on it. And at some point, there is a price that you play the Rangers. I'd be looking at the Rangers money line for sure in the plus 300s. I don't expect to see a number that high. Probably around plus 275. I still think the Rangers would be worth a shot. Hopefully it's not there because, like I said, I'd rather be on the Astros simply because I just don't think it goes well for Cole Ragans. I really like playing the Astros anytime they're facing a lefty, especially a subpar lefty. Those are the guys they go to town on like they did against the Angels on Sunday. 18 Eastern short time Guardians at the Royals. Cody Morris will get the nod for the Guardians versus Zach Greinke coming back off the injured list. Morris has pitched once this season in the big leagues, thrown 2 innings, given up 2 runs. Projects to be fairly league average, though, which is an interesting note, and a good set of relievers behind him. So things can go pretty well for the Guardians, especially against a subpar Royals offense. Greinke, a pretty average pitcher, talked about him a lot this season when he's been healthy. Not the pitcher he was, but a pitcher who still kind of consistently can go out there and give you 5 solid innings. Not really thinking he's going to get much more than that, and hard to see him shutting down the Guardians' above average offense in a hitter-friendly ballpark. But you don't ever expect him to get lit up because he just kind of more or less goes about his business and quietly is fairly average. Model for this one says it should be Guardians minus 144. And so, again, kind of just see what the number is on this one. Probably a situation where if I'm on the Royals, I'm on the run line. If I'm on the Guardians, I'm on the money line. Given that the model says 144, my buy point money line for the Guardians would be probably about minus 150. Anything in the minus 140s would be a C grade play. Anything in the minus 130s, a B grade, minus 120s, A grade. And then the Royals would be kind of the flip of that. Once it gets above plus 150 on the Royals, I'd be on the Royals, but a C grade play in the 160s B and the 170s A grade play. But I probably would just play the corresponding run line instead. Wrap us up 8:40 Eastern. First pitch, Diamondbacks at the Padres. Diamondbacks hitting it done again for us on the run line, thankfully, as they blew this one on Tuesday, but still got us the run line victory. I'm back on the run line with them again. This Padres team just isn't convincingly good like they should be. I'm going to take the run line again with the Diamondbacks at minus 115. It's a B grade play. I think they got another shot to win, another shot to hang in there, and I think the run line offers some value. Do have a starting pitcher edge, of course, for the Padres with Yu Darvish on the hill, a guy I've talked about. Just a fantastic season, 3.26 ERA, and the underlying metrics say he's that good. Having a good season, again, props to him. Diamondbacks, though, offense, again, so left-handed heavy, can hit around a righty and is just looking pretty solid these days. They should be able to score some. Darvish, obviously a good pitcher, probably doesn't expect to get hit around too much, but I mean, the Diamondbacks offense, as long as not against a lefty, I feel like it's done fairly well. Tommy Henry will get the start for the Diamondbacks, a little bit below average, 4.83 ERA on his 6 starts. Underlying metrics say that's pretty accurate. But again, the Padres offense, also left-handed heavy, gets a little bit of a ding against lefty. So the offense is here. The Padres offense facing a lefty, whereas the Diamondbacks get to face a righty, still projects better than the Diamondbacks, but not by much. It's very, very small. The relievers are better, but it's not by much. And those Padres relievers aren't that great. I mean, their biggest edge is obviously Darvish versus Henry, but that only matters so much because Darvish is probably not going to give you more than 6. Henry's probably only going to give you 5. So, I mean, the relievers matter in this one. The offenses matter. I mean, the starting pitching, it's not like the old days where the starting pitchers make up half the game because they're going to pitch the whole game, right? So that matters, but not that much. The Padres should be favored, but the price I'm seeing on them is minus 198, and I think that's just too high. The model indicates that instead of a price like that, it should be Diamondbacks minus 185. So again, just a situation where I think the Padres are a little bit overpriced. Plus 182 on the Diamondbacks might be worth the flyer, but I just rather take them run line. Again, expecting them to be able to hang around like they've been doing here the last several days. So I'll be on them at a run line, price of minus 115, a B grade pick. So that's all the games. Again, a lot to be determined with regards to a couple of these doubleheaders and some pitching confirmations that haven't happened yet. So check Twitter, check the sheet, update all that stuff as we know more. Update the sheet with totals in the late morning. As of now, I've got 2 A grade plays for you, but hopefully more to come. Once we know more information, again, maybe some overnight line movement will allow us to find a more beneficial number. We can add to those A plays, so who knows what will happen there. But right now, I've got the Orioles plus 130 at home against the Blue Jays as an A grade play. I've got the Cardinals on the run line at minus 140 at home against the Nats as an A grade play. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder to check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link and more at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. See you again tomorrow for more Major League Baseball picks. And until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.